Jeremy's going to walk you through the different parts of his project. He's going to let you tinker around a little bit, and he'll show us the process of how he put it together. Mm-hmm. I think Jeremy's the most impressive, but it's cool. Whatever. He just likes to outdo people.
Jeremy's the man.
So, by a show of hands, who's opened After Effects before or has any idea what's going on when you look at the panels? So a couple people. Okay. So if you play through this real quick, it's not necessarily simple, but it's definitely simple shapes that all work together to create like a simple animated repeatable GIF. So what we have going on here is basically what's called a shape layer, which is a whole bunch of SVGs or a series of Bezier points that are animated to move across the screen. Those points are defined mathematically so that this can be scaled to any level. We've talked about vector graphics before here. So this is an example of a vector graphic that I've converted into a whole, or I've changed shapes with. If we were to actually start to dig into this project a little bit, you'll see that there's first just a piece of text, which is just a Happy Valentine's Day that animates on. And we can talk about animating text layers later. With this piece of text, same idea, did the same kind of animation, just another piece of text. Here we have just this piece that's a shape, this kind of tan layer. And this is what we call a pre-composition, and we'll dig into that in just a moment. Below that, we have just the shadow, and this is basically its own shape that just has color to it. So that kind of gives it some depth and some reality. And then, of course, there's the background. So all of these things combined make this project run. So let's go ahead and start digging into this shape layer. So what we have in here, you'll see a bunch of these diamonds. These are keyframes, so these are the points of animation that are then interpolated between. So what that means is that if I move my playhead to where that diamond is, that's the shape of our shape layer at that point in time. As I move between diamonds, you'll see that it animates between them as it tries to interpolate what the frames in between the two keyframes are. This is common in animation. We can call these in-betweens. We can call these breakdowns. They all basically relate to how things change over time to get to these key poses. So what I have going on is I have, first of all, this is a locked layer, a guided base. This was just to make sure that the entire animation stayed on the same point, because what I wanted it to do was kind of feel like it was grounded on something and it had some weight. So I made sure that there was a ground plane for everything to stand on. So this ground plane, if I were to unlock it and show you what it looks like, is literally a line, just so that I knew that I was always hitting the same point when I was moving things and scaling things around. So that's that piece. Then below that is the motion element. This is the main body of the animation. You'll see that I have different keyframe properties, both of which are paths. And one path, the top one, is the actual outline, the major shape, the heart on the outside. And the part on the inside is the hole that would be created for the clock and the circle in the pin. And then to give it some more life, because as you can see, there's just from this property to this property, there's only 2 keyframes, so it just goes from one to the other. To give it more life, I gave it some scale that helped to give it that squash and stretch feel that we talk about in animation. So this scales from 100% to a little bit squashed in, but a little taller, and then it squashes back out as it starts to expand into that new position. So that's all for the main body of the motion element. Then, just because the clock had additional features to it, I had to add in a couple extra shape layers. So the clock hands are just that. It's a single shape. If I open it up, you'll see that there's the contents within the shape layer is a single rectangular path with another path merged together. So they're then one shape, basically. So it's just 2 rectangles that I merged into one shape so that they have the same outline. So that the outline would be shared between both shapes with that stroke and then that fill. So those components are all collapsed together into that same shape layer. And we can go over this more one-on-one after this little quick tutorial. And then the reflected elements, these are the tops of the clock, because the clock has the 2 bells on it. So in order to do that, I just created the single path, which is those 3 points with a little bit of Bezier to make them look more rounded. And then I used what was called a repeater. And so what this repeater does, if I turn this off, you'll see that the other one disappears. This repeater, I just say make 2 copies. So take this thing, make an additional copy of it. If I were to expand this out, we can't see it because it go off the page. But if I were to take the transform properties, what I'm doing is I'm just basically scaling it by negative 100%. So it just flips it right over the origin and puts it over to the other side. So that's what I've got going on with the repeater. And then the same stroke and fill elements that I have been using in the other were copy and pasted into that. So that's how that works, basically. So when you have that, this whole piece is its own individual thing. It doesn't have any secondary animation. It's just simply the movement of the shape changing back and forth. Coming back up into main, that's this piece, right? So I just have it animate on, wherever it went. Oh, I have it soloed. Animates on. So that's, if I open up the properties here, there's additional keyframes on this pre-composition that say set the rotation to a certain point and have it bounce back and scale, do the whole animation, and then take off and do the same thing. So that works with that piece. And then this text layer, basically what I have going on here is within the text, I have I added an animation property, and these are all sorts of different things. We can go over how these work. You can select different parts of your animation. Say you just want to select the individual characters or the words or other things like that. You can select these things and then say, I want to just change the opacity on these elements. And so I can then use this range selector that's going to select from 0 to 100% as I scroll through that. And change the opacity to this level. So as I scroll through, it'll turn it completely off. But if I go like this, I can go either way. So, so that's basically what happens with the animator. So in this case, what I have is this animator is also working on opacity. I wanted to set it to 0. So I have 0 as the level of the opacity. And then as I scroll through here, you'll see that the only property that is actually animated is the offset. And generally when I'm working with text like this, I only animate on the offset because I want it to go from 0 to 100%. So I set my start and end to be how long they need to, and then just move the offset. So that way I get the full line of text and not only partial parts of the text. If I wanted less of the text, I would choose to start at maybe 0 and go to like 30%. And that'll only show 30%. And then I can use the offset to animate only 30% of the text all the way through. So that's basically how I work with text to make this kind of animation. So that's the text, and it doesn't transform, so I have no other properties to go over there. The only other thing to go over is how the shadow works. You'll see that if I try to open up the keyframes, which is the keyboard shortcut U, there's nothing that shows up. But if I double click on U, it'll show any properties that have changed. And one of those properties is here, this endpoint, which is basically, I'm sorry, the thing that I want to show is position. And so what I have here is I have a quick script that I wrote that basically says, take whatever the position of the motion element is and match that to wherever I am. So it takes, so this line of text will take the position, this center point, and match it to the center point, that ground plane that I was talking about earlier. It matches it and says, make my value the same as this value. And I did that just quickly with this little wiggly worm, or the quick whip.
Is that what it's called?
It's a quick worm. It's a quick worm.
Official term, wiggly worm.
And
This
so-
is just
Coined by
famous.
Jeremy Block.
So then I took that, I went to the shape, and I went to the position property on that, and just linked them together, and that rewrote the script to exactly what I wanted it to be.
And do most values have that option, so you can just drag it to any other?
Yeah. So if I wanted to,
That's
if I wanted to do the anchor point, I could just hold Option, click on the stopwatch, and it'll give me the option to put in a whole expression. You can write whole things of JavaScript in there, and it actually will interpret it its own way. Technically, it's called AE script, but it's basically the same as JavaScript.
Interesting.
But yeah, so you can put a whole properties in there and then set them up. So that's how that works. Is that way you get the whole clip kind of all at once?
Sorry.
So we had my idea for my Valentine card was to have a heart animate up and to simply write some sort of text on there. I thought, I thought it would be fun to do that. So basically, what I did is your first part is this PNG that I got from the internet. The reason that it turned black is because I soloed it. That means you don't have the background. And so it's literally just this little heart that comes to full frame on the thing. Just as Jeremy said before, there is these little triangles are to represent the start and end of the key pose. So I started at frame 1, and then it gets to full at frame 24. Wow, that's absolutely insane. I didn't mean to do that at all. Anyway, then the other part of this is uses a plugin called Saber. Saber is not a After Effects native file. It's basically somebody made a plugin, which is basically a script that you can put into After Effects and make your own effect out of it. It's actually very useful, and probably it's actually kind of crazy that it's free to download because this thing can be used for most things.
What is it?
Saber?
Like video
So-
Copilot.
If you Google Video Copilot Saber, it'll come up. It's like the first result. Basically, this guy, his YouTube channel is Video Copilot, or his tag is Video Copilot, and he walks you through. It was originally used for a lightsaber battle that he was doing, and he gave his code out for free. But it can be mapped to anything. So what I'm gonna do is how do I show? Let's see. Is this gonna do anything? Yeah. So this is
that's cool.
this is actually way better than my original text. Thank you for finding the new one. So Saber is this fun function. Right now it is it's because of the effect that I have on it, right? Yeah. Okay, so right now it is on neon. I can increase the intensity and stuff. Yeah, I can blow it out and stuff.
Is the way the text comes in the text, or is it in the Saber?
It is in the Saber, I believe. Yeah, it's on the offset. Yeah, it's an animate offset. So it's the same thing that Jeremy was doing with his text. Mine is just using throughout this Saber plugin. Has all these different customization features that you can use.
Since every form of text or every font is technically a bunch of vector shapes, it's just following the path and just animating that path. Now that doesn't come native with After Effects. It's something that's specifically designed within Saber. But that's how that comes around, is that it just draws the path of the font.
Yeah, and basically what I did is I first created this Be My Valentine, which is just a text which you can't see because it is behind stuff. It's this black text with the font. And then I attached this Saber effect to it because Saber has to be its own layer and a whole bunch of crazy stuff. And so basically what it's doing is it's putting the light element that would be like the lightsaber, or in this case a neon light, around the edge of the font. And so when it comes fully in, it is animated. And so what I did is I had it animate the outside of it and then fade in this darker element to kind of give it some more, basically so it's easier to read. And that's basically my entire project. It's pretty simple. After exporting, the thing though that Jeremy didn't go over is After Effects does not export GIFs for whatever reason.
Well, it's actually Mac that doesn't do it.
Oh, is it Mac that's the problem? Okay, well, anyway, what you do is you export this as an MOV, and then you can bring it into Photoshop, and Photoshop will be able to export it as a GIF, which is our hacky way of getting around this fun endeavor.
Can we see it?
Kyle, do you want to go over yours?
Can we see the GIF that you made?
Sure.
Never played it.
You could just play through.
Yeah, I can just play it here. Huzzah!
Huzzah.
Look at it, it's so pretty. Here, I'll even
Better on the black background.
Yeah. Do that.
Keep back on
The black background.
I want to see the lightsabers, man.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Meow!
You should
Okay.
make this. You should make the heart also glow a little bit.
You could, if you wanted, what you could do is you could make another Saber effect on it. You could have it like burning in the background. Like,
The Saber is awesome.
The Saber is-
like a burning.
yeah, like a flaming heart. It's, fiery passion. Very passionate. Heat. What is it, the tilde key to yeah. Boom.
Perfect for making a portal to throw someone.
Okay.
Yeah, question.
Yeah, what's up?
How is, this is gonna be a really stupid question. how is your Saber tool linked to your text?
So inside the Saber tool,
Yeah.
there is
You have to select the effect from the effect thing.
you do customize core and then you choose text layer. So if you look on the screen, see underneath Saber, you can customize the core, and if you choose a text layer, inside that there is the layer
Oh,
that
yeah,
is
which one?
that is connected to it. Yeah, so it's all inside Saber. That's why Saber is so much fun
At a
because
time, but you can do it different.
yeah, you guys are so right. I should have left.
Multiple and have multiple different
Should have had a black background. What am I thinking? This is why I do management and not actual work. What?
You fixed it.
I did. It's now all fun. No, I'll do it later.
The Saber tool is one of the best things in After Effects I've ever seen, and it's amazing that it's free. If you have After Effects, you download it. Even if you don't know if you're going to use it, it's just free, so you should just have it.
It's great
Where
for
do
like.
you put it into? Like, how do you?
So what you do is you literally go Google it, and you'll have a download
Thanks for
package,
coming.
and you install it right where it's installed.
I have
the
I have the installer
Thank you guys
on
for
my
coming.
hard drive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But you can do that.
So
Did you get them for
whenever I
attendance?
work on
Did we
these
get them for
computers.
attendance?
Jeremy, did you get them for
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Why is it taking so long to render? Okay, now that it's done rendering, we can actually watch it. Okay, so
You should make the match get shorter.
You could if you wanted to.
you could. Okay, so this was more or less a very quick, just making it work kind of thing, just to show how it works. So yeah, I also use Saber tool, but I did say there's 3 things you can do with Saber tool. You can do the Saber preset, which is just it's a straight line, 2 points. You can manipulate it. It's pretty cool because you can animate it and it automatically does like motion blur, like how they do in Star Wars. Like if it moves too fast, it like has like a big wall of light. We can do text, like with Dan's, where it's like it can flow around the text, or you can do just a straight up polygon mask, which is what I did to make this. So we're gonna break this down. So mine is my match is just 2 simple shapes. It's just a rectangle and an oval that I just kind of aligned up together, and then had them and then made their anchor points the same position, and then rotated it around that. So that's how I got the falling. And then again, with any sort of realistic animation, you want that swatch and stretch, and you also want momentum, you want weight to it. So what I did is I first had it kind of wind up. I basically just went a few frames and then just rotated it between frames. So it hits the ground, and then the next frame it ignites. So I again keyframed the fire to move with the match.
Now,
And then-
keep in mind that he could also use that pick whip to
Yes,
connect it,
if you want.
and
I
then
could've.
figure out the math to be able to attach it the right way, because it's the anchor point is different, so you'd have to do all that calculation, but ultimately you can get the same result.
Yeah, Jeremy's much better at After Effects than I am. So here is how we do the Saber polygon. So let's take a closer look at the Saber. So I labeled it as the flame layer. So the Saber not only is a very cool effect, it also has a bunch of different presets. So I obviously chose fire because it's a flame, it's a match. So we chose fire, and I can show you actually how the different different layer effects work. So right now on Customized Core, you can go into here and do text, but I have it on layer masks. So layer mask, but just really quick to show the Saber tool. So here's the base Saber tool. It's just a line with 2 points. You can grab each point, manipulate it and stuff, but whatever. But I wanted a mask. So what I did, here if I can zoom in on that. So you see around the head of the match, there's the mask right here. I'm messing with it here. This is just a simple mask I made. I didn't make it a perfect circle because I wanted to have kind of an organic shape to make it look kind of cool. So I just did that. And then all you have to do, it's super simple. Once you have your mask, just simply click layer masks, and the Saber tool will automatically conform to the mask you have on the layer. And then it automatically animates itself if it will render. Again, the polygon mask is a bit heavier on the Saber tool, so it does take a few more seconds to render, but it works just fine. Oh, whoops. Yeah, so this is what it looks like. It animates each frame, and then all I did after that was nothing more than have just text appear. Oh, I just set the endpoint. Whoops. I just had text fade in. It used to be script, but that font isn't on this computer. But I didn't do anything fancy with the text. I just had it just fade in simply. I could have easily done what Dan did, like put the Saber tool on that as well, different effect. But yeah, basically more or less the match the fire. You can mess with the polygon masks with the Saber tool to make some pretty cool shapes and make something look like it's actually on fire or stuff like that. I think, and that's basically all there is to this one that hasn't been said before.